Well, good morning, everyone. Yeah, turn that down a little bit. Well, thank everyone for being here at our Agriculture and Consumer Affairs Committee. I'd like to ask Representative Donahue to open us up with a word of prayer.
Father, we lift you up, and Lord, we just praise your name. We thank you for each person that's traveled here this morning, and we pray for safety. We pray that you watch over and protect their families. And Heavenly Father, we just pray for a great meeting today. Open our minds and help us to do what's best for the state of Georgia. All these things we pray in Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you. I think everyone has an agenda. We're going to hear HB 336 and a hearing only for HB 574 this morning. Those of you in the audience who would like to speak, we've got a sign-up sheet, I think, don't we, Lee? And I think we're going to also try to limit how long some testimony and speaking to try to get through our meeting if it's very many that want to speak. But we'll try to find the time to do that. All y'all here in person, I think. David, who do we have online? Clay Perkle, Chairman Perkle is the only one, and Representative Mitchell also are online. So thank y'all for being here or online. With that, we're going to get right into our agenda. And I'm going to recognize Chairman Corbett to bring his bill.
15.
You got it.
Can I present from here? Be fine. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I bring before you House Bill 336, LC 441673S. Over the last couple of years, we've passed a couple bills. We've been hitting a moving target because the feds had not adopted their final rules and regulations. They finally come out with their final rules. It's over 300 pages, and after working with the Department of Ag and law enforcement people to get the language in the bill that we needed to get in compliance with the federal rules and regs, changing some wording around. That's what this bill is about, just basically clean up. And also the fine rules chairman in the Senate had a bill over there, had a small one-line addition that's added in here. And after speaking with him, I was glad to put it in my bill. So anyway, we'll go through the bill, and I'll explain what the changes are. We'll start with section 1, and this was the change that Chairman Mullis had in his bill, where we changed the definition of processor. If you look on line 17, we added that to it. That does not constitute processing by adding commonly known as drying, shucking, bucking, storing, trimming. That does not constitute processing. That was the change he had in his bill. If we'll go on to section 2, we add on line 52, which is illegal for any person to cultivate or handle hemp in any structure that is used for residential purposes. Section 3, line 63, we get into the licensee having to have basically a contract with a processor between lines 63. We're doing away with that at the request of the department. Line 67, for shall be a qualified producer. Basically, we're trying to had a lot of people that were going through the process, and they had to apply for a gate card to do this, and then they get it, and then they do not follow through. They do not go ahead and get their license to grow. So we will remove that requirement up front, so we don't have to present that to the department before they receive their license. Line 72 through 75, again, this deals with an affidavit. that the licensee, the grower would have to provide to the department that they had a contract with a processor. Didn't feel like that was necessary for the department to keep up with that information. That would be between any contract would be between a grower and a processor, and no need for the department to keep that paperwork. Lines 81 through 98, and this was the background check. And this is the part we was having trouble with last week. We was having trouble getting the language right for the GBI. It turned out, the FBI requires that an individual can't go and ask for their background check or fingerprints. It has to be requested by the department. So basically, lines 81 through 92, well, actually through 98, was removed from the bill, but then re-added at line 100. And basically it states that well, not line 95, where the department shall conduct a criminal background check. The department authorizes that, and all that was reinserted here, even the part about the having a misdemeanor that several people asked me about last week, and that's why we had pulled the bill. So all that was reinserted at the request of the GBI to get the language right for the FBI that they required. So it was that was the reason behind that change. Then we get into section 4, and basically doing the same thing with the processor as we did with the grower, with the affidavits, where didn't feel like the department needed to keep a copy of that. And then lines 156, same thing with the criminal background check on the processors. It needed to be requested by the department. So that was removed and then reinserted in section C, starting at 170, where the department requests for that. Lines 193, I had the bill in the Senate last year. We was talking about fees for the processor. We had an agreement, and we agreed that if they got to the point where they seen that the $50,000 renewal fee, that they didn't need that to operate the program. We want the program to be self-sustaining, where we don't have to prop it up, because that's the only way that's ever going to last. If we can, it sustains itself. So after working with the Department of Ag, they think after this year's fee, that where it was raised to $50,000, going forward, we can lower that to 25. They have all the personnel, training, equipment, all that in place where they can lower the fees to 25,000 next year. With the agreement, if they find out that we can lower it again next year, we will do that. But that's going just a year by year thing. We have to look at it next year. If we got more processors come in, and we can possibly then for the 2023 growing season, we could lower it even further than that. So that would be the ultimate goal, where we can get down lower and lower. But that was the agreement with that. Looking at the numbers that we felt comfortable with this year. So staying where we are this year, then starting in the next year's growing season, lowering it to 25,000. Going on to, I think, page 11 of the bill. And this just gets into getting our verbiage in line with basically with the federal, their rules and regs. Basically, where we talk about destroy, their verbiage is dispose, and what we call a crop, they refer to as a lot. So basically, you can have a field, you can have several different lots in that field. So if one lot gets rejected because it went hot, it anyway cleans that up. So this just getting, and that's the same thing on line 259, 263, 270, or 271, 276, and 277. Just change from destroy to dispose, and from crop to lot. Then on page 12, the same thing on 283 and 284, changing it from destroy to dispose. And then on to 87, same thing, changing from destroy to dispose of. And that's basically what we're doing in this bill, Mr. Chairman. And I will answer any questions if there are any. And if I might have to refer to my Department of Ag friends if there's something I can't answer. But if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Thank you, Chairman Corbett. And as y'all can see, a lot of work is constantly gone into this bill. It's complicated trying to manage our state wants with federal and all. And I just really appreciate your time and hard work on bringing this bill, this update, and also the changes in there. I think are much better. And so I'll open up. We got some people in the audience that want to speak to this bill, but if we've got some questions from our committee members, I'll go ahead and take those, and we'll continue to take some questions from our committee members as you would like. So I see one question from Chairman Jaspers.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Corbett. Got just a quick question, just to make sure I understand it. So, since the application's annual, does that mean that the background check is done annually?
Yes,
Okay.
they'd have to go through that every time they apply.
Okay, thank you.
I see Commissioner Black in the audience. Commissioner, would you have any comments on the changes to this bill, or where we are with what your department is going to be responsible for and how they're going to handle things? Well, I think we'd like to hear from you first.
Good to see y'all this morning, and I want to thank Chairman Corbett also for his hard work on this, trying to develop an industry. It's not to be too light about it, but it's you spoke to it, Mr. Chairman, about trying to hitting a moving target, or this is major league whack-a-mole. I mean, it's just hard. Where do you got to start somewhere, and that's what we've done. And every time there needs to be a little bit of a change, and been waiting on the feds to do that. Mr. Chairman, to our belief and council is on the Zoom, this matches up with federal regulations, which is what the goal was. We had to make some changes. This keeps us in compliance with what the federal government is requiring. So to that go, we're a high degree of confidence with respect to the way fees are collected. One, thank you for the work that y'all are doing to make sure that we have a good, strong regulatory program, which is going to take a handful of folks. And I think we're well on our way to getting that accomplished in the one in the amended, but also in the 22 that's coming. But we are, from an advocate standpoint, I guess you look for good government. You want the program to try to pay for itself, but certainly we're going to operate based upon what you pass, and then this government has to decide how they want to fund it. Because I don't think we want to pass something this far-reaching and then not have a good program to back it up. I've been advocating ever since day one, if we're going to be number one in hemp. If we intentionally to try to be the best. So you got to have the best regulatory program. We ought to have the best research at Fort Valley and University of Georgia. We ought to have the best medical research in Augusta. And those things require us to establish priorities of where to put investments. But certainly, the moderation of these fees is that's the will of the committee. That's certainly what, because we don't get to keep the money anyway. It goes to the general treasury. But Mr. Chairman, thank you. We appreciate all the work and appreciate council's work on this too. And I think all our boxes are checked with respect to that.
Thank you for that update. If we got any other questions, I appreciate you being here this morning. We've got our sign-up sheet, and it's quite lengthy. It's 12 people have signed up. So I'd like to start, and I would ask those of you who do want to speak to keep it short, keep it to the point. You kind of see what our posture is this morning, but we'd love to take testimony. And I'd like to ask Victoria Collier to come to the podium mic, and Ms. Collier, the mic's yours.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And I was curious if I could please give a handout to everybody on the committee of what I'll be talking about just for a moment. And I expect my testimony will probably take longer than anybody else's in here, although I will be brief as well. While this is being handed out, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this morning. My name is Victoria Collier, and I am a licensed hemp grower in 2020 as well as 2021. I was a licensed, I should say, a permitted hemp processor in 2020, but I am not a processor in 2021 due to the fees, and I will get into that. What is being handed out to you is the first 2 pages, and the top of page 3 are just the issues that are relevant in this case as far as what is not becoming the #1 state for hemp production, but actually killing the ability for us to grow and produce hemp in the state of Georgia, to where we are 0 in the nation. And a large part of that has to do with the fees. There are also other pages behind that, exhibits A through H, that verify and provide support and evidence as to what I'm talking about this morning. And while we have the opportunity to change the law through House Bill 336, we have the opportunity to actually revive what killed us last year, and those are the processing fees. So if I could leave you with 3 takeaways today, #1 would be that farmers must obtain the affidavit of the intent to contract with a processor before they can be approved to be a grower in the state of Georgia. The number of processors in 2020 was, where the application fee was $25,000, was over 10 processors. I have a printout from Exhibit A, which is on page 4 of your packet, which shows 10 that were listed in July of 2020 on the Department of Ag's website. There were more than that by the end of the year, but it's not published anymore, and this happens to be one that I had saved in the middle of the year. In 2021, there are only 4 processors currently. Only 3 of those were processors in 2020. That means more than 7 did not renew their licenses this year, and primarily because of finances. And you'll see that the 4th person on there is a new licensed person, which means they only paid the $25,000. Not only are there only 4 this year, but absolutely 0 of them are writing contracts with farmers this year, which means that farmers cannot grow and have a contract assuredly that they're going to be paid for their crop. Moreover, 0 of the processors from last year paid their farmers for the crops that they grew and that the processors received and have in their warehouses. And that's why the farmers are here today and have driven over 3 hours to be here this morning to talk with you about the actual what has happened last year, where they grew, they relied on processors, and 0 of them have been paid for their crops from last year, and 0 of them are being able to get licenses this year. We have to expand the opportunity for people to be able to process, and we can't do that at $50,000. The other thing I want you to take away is that this is not a controlled substance. Medical marijuana is a controlled substance, and medical marijuana has 2 classes based on the size of what they are able to produce. 100,000 square foot building is class 1. 50,000 square foot building is class 2. Why do I bring that up? I bring that up because class 2 controlled substance medical marijuana, the licensing fee is $50,000, which is what's being requested here of these processors for hemp, which is a plant. It is not a controlled substance. We can't hold it to the same standard as medical marijuana. But what we can do is we can have 2 classes of production just like medical marijuana, and I appreciate Representative Thomas and I being able to speak with each other last week, because she was instrumental in being able to come with a creative option and having 2 classes. And what I have and what I'm showing you in my package here under exhibits F and G and H is that there are 2 different classes of processors going on right now. And you've got the large business processors. And if you go to Exhibit G, this is a copy of pictures of what my processing center was going to be. I paid $20,000 for used equipment for my small family farm processing, which would allow us to produce 300 pounds of hemp to turn into CBD products per year. 300 pounds is nothing, but it's enough to feed a family. And if you look on Exhibit F, which is the page right before the picture of me and my kids and our processing equipment, which you can see we're processing by hand with a sifter. On Exhibit F, which is about page 12, right before the first pictures, 300 pounds. If the processor would have paid me $5 per pound, which I would have made $1,500 as a farmer if I just outright gave that or sold that to the processor. Whereas if I processed my own, it's not going to make me rich, but it's going to be able to show my family the value of farming and the value of owning a business. And we would be able to make at 300 pounds approximately, if we sold it retail out on the market, before any expenses, before the farming expenses, before any taxes, basically $319,000. But after all the expenses, on the right-hand column, far right, I have it highlighted in yellow. If we sold it retail, it'd be about $251,000 per the year. If we sold it wholesale to other businesses so they could sell it, it'd be about $113,000. That's not going to make us rich, but it's decent. But you look at big corporations like Second Century Ag, and you look at Pretoria Fields, who Second Century Ag has 9,000 pounds of my biomass. If they were supposed to pay $45,000 for that. They can make on retail sales $11 million on that. If they, after all their expenses, presumably it's $7.5 million. They have, I thought 40,000 pounds of H&H farms, but they actually only have 27,000 pounds.
Ms. Collier,
Yes.
we're going to have to.
So my
get to the
point is that small farmers should be able to process their own hemp as well, but we can't pay the same prices, and we don't have access to the big corporate processors because they're not writing contracts for us and they're not paying the farmers once we do grow for them. And so that's the second thing I would like to say. And then lastly, while it looks like they're trying to take away the need to have a processor contract, there's actually conflicting language within the bill, and I've outlined that in our solutions. If you can take some time just to read my narrative and take a look through the comments. Today, you'll hear from other farmers as to what their experience is, but what I'm saying is not unique, and it's a big problem. Nobody can grow this year because there aren't any processors and nobody's writing contracts. So we have to make it reasonable and accessible for family farms to get in the industry. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that and in the handout. We've got a couple of member questions. Representative Thomas, do you have a question? Representative Ward, Lewis Ward. What number?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Representative Corbett, thank you so much for your work that you've done on this, this measure. My question is rather simple. It's on page 7, lines 170, 171, and 172. Can you just, I'm just wondering what the difference is between a criminal background check and a federal criminal history report?
I might have to defer to Bryce, but this is what the FBI, the language they wanted. They sent it to GBI that we needed to put in the bill. This is where the department, had to conduct that. And I would assume it's the same thing as the language before. It means the same thing, but this is just the verbiage they requested.
I'm reading it. It says, upon receipt of the application, the department shall conduct a criminal background check and is authorized to obtain a federal criminal history report. Is that 2 different reports?
I would defer to legal counsel if that would.
Chairman, I believe that I believe, and to some extent I'll defer to Department of Agriculture's counsel because I know they've been in direct contact with the GBI and the FBI, but I believe that there is, on the one hand, a state criminal background report, and on the other hand, a federal criminal background report. So I believe that's the distinction.
And I think this gets us in compliance with the federal rules and regs that they've adopted. That's correct, Bryce?
Thank you. And we also have Representative Mitchell online and has a question. Representative Mitchell, would you
Hi,
like?
Thank you. My question was actually in line with the producer who just spoke's question. Is there a reason we chose fixed rate fees despite without taking into consideration farm size? And what type of acreage would you need to be producing on in order to be breaking even with a 25K processing fee?
Thank you. The average small farmer is growing between 1 to 20 acres. You can basically put 1,000 plants per acre, and you're getting about half a pound per plant. So that's 500 pounds per acre. And so most farmers want to actually sell their crop like they do other crops. Small farmers who want to hold their own, like I held 600 of my own pounds back. I'm actually having to send that out of state to process it right now in Wisconsin. But I would say the regional small farmer is going to keep somewhere between 300 to 900 pounds, and they're going to grow between 1 to 20 acres.
Okay, thank you. Representative Wilson, what mic 2? 23. Okay, you got it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was co-signer on the original bill last session, but part of the reason I've been reluctant to express my support so far on this is because of the testimony we just heard from Ms. Collier. So, and I've heard from many others. And so, Mr. Chairman, at some point, I would love to hear Commissioner Black or one of his colleagues respond to that and help give us some context.
Representative Wilson, comment about what? The fees?
That the current system is set up to shut out family farmers.
Well, I think the answer B is trying to finance the program. I don't want to speak for the commissioner, but from an appropriation standpoint, I think we're trying to balance, came up with a model to try to balance operation of the program that you see, unfortunately, takes a lot of regulation and oversight with the budgetary needs to do that. And so in my opinion, I think we kind of try to find a balance. I'll let the chairman, Corbett here, speak probably a little bit more than that. He's been in more detail with that. Chairman Corbett.
Thank you, Chairman Dickey. When we started this 3 years ago now, Commissioner Black, study committee, we went all over a lot of other states that got into a pilot program, and you heard all kind of horror stories of like the Wild West. Anybody that wanted to get a permit and plant it, and they just had flooded the market. They had all this acres grown and nowhere to process it. So we tried to model our program basically after sort of like the a chicken processing plant where they have a contract with the growers to grow. That way you're not growing any more than you've got a contract for. You've got a processor. It protected the grower, and we felt like that was the best way to go forward. It's been said in here that that hemp is not marijuana, but the problem in the federal definition, anything over 0.3 THC is marijuana. That same plant this hemp is classified as hemp as long as it's 0.3 or less. Can go 0.31 and it's now marijuana. So that's the issue with the regulation and testing. Everything has to be done with the hemp that makes it just it's just as has about as much oversight as the medical marijuana program. to verify that it does not go over the 0.3. Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Black, could you address the cost that your department will incur this year in overseeing the program, and kind of let our committee kind of know what's involved?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. And my friend Representative Wilson, and we'd be happy to talk in any. Where is he? I'm sorry, I couldn't see you around the corner there. Be happy to talk immediately after about any depth, and we can put counsel and answer some of that. Any question you might have, as we have anyone that has come to our office, as we have anyone that has tried to address these, any of the issues during the advent and continuation of the program. If this body chooses to have no fees whatsoever, that's the choice of the legislative process. You have a bunch of free licenses. If that's an impediment and y'all choose that as the policy of the state of Georgia, then we still got to fund it somehow. We came to you last year with a very conservative number of $800,000 we felt like it would take to really do it correctly. Because this is not a willy-nilly business. This is a serious business. It's a business that's full of opportunity for small, medium, large. There's a lot of opportunity for a lot of people. But at the same time, one has to look at what's the strategy to actually keep up with it and make sure we're compliant with federal law. And so that's been our goal through this, is to try to get us over those humps so that we, there's another alternative that we considered. The chairman knows, though we've not spoken about this in some time, but the chairman well knows you could back up completely from this and let the federal government have it. We could say we're not going to have a state plan, and then the federal government will run the whole thing. And you may choose to do that. But if we're going to have a state plan, we've given you of what we thought it would take to run. It backed up from 800 to 500 to then we got 200. And then we were absolutely eaten alive last year from a standpoint of internal costs and with our licensing and the time it takes to do this. And one last thing, Mr. Chairman, y'all, we knew that we didn't think there was the stomach to pay for the testing, and every grower had to pay for tests. But, could that be done in our laboratories? Yeah, but you'd have to have a separate secluded place to do so in the state's laboratories, and all of that has a price tag. So it comes down to a fundamental question: how we're going to pay for it. So that's my best shot. But to my friend, I'd be happy to talk in depth as long as you want to talk with any of your constituents or anybody else. We'll lay those out. But I believe, and council's again online if we've got any more detailed questions, but we've tried to, I believe, match up what needs to happen with federal law, and that's what the chairman's bill is.
Thank you, Commissioner. We're going to move on very quickly. I know some other people signed up. Chance Calloway, could you come to the podium, Mike, please? And again, we're past the halfway mark in our committee meeting. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir. I wanted to read on behalf of Sprout Farms. Our experience overall was tough and exciting until we were informed that the processor renewal fee was raised, that we and the other processors would not be grandfathered in. And our contract we signed for a $10,000 renewal fee holds no ground. From that point on, we had to shift our focus from our crop growing and completely reform our business plan, because our 5-year plan did not allot for $250,000 worth of licensing fee. Our operation is more of a mom and pop operation, and we plan on growing our processing facility over time with cost of machinery. With the coronavirus virtually ending a lot of business deals we were working on, the $50,000 renewal fee put the nail in the coffin to our whole business plan. Now we are forced to go out of state to find a processor and possibly moving our whole operation out of state, which is sad because we were born and raised here. And we're looking forward to be a pioneer in the Georgia hemp industry. In 2021, we are now having to sell off equipment we purchased for processing and trying to figure out what to do with the facility we started building for processing. We are being forced to flush a big chunk of our initial investment down the drain and start over new. We as Georgia farmers have everything we need as far as growing conditions are concerned to grow very high quality hemp and make money at it. As small farmers and processors, we are being hindered by the current laws. Yep. And on behalf of myself, I grew hemp last year, and I had to destroy it following the processor's guidelines, you know, the 0.03. And my neighbors here, they've never been paid for their crop. And we don't profess to be rich people. You know, it hurts, you know, when you don't get paid on a small farm. We currently grow tobacco is what we do, and tobacco gets tougher all the time. We were hunting another avenue, you know, to try to make our 5th generation farm go on. You know, so it would be mighty nice if, you know, if y'all could help us out, we would sure appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you for coming, being here. I'm going to recognize Representative Donahoe has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Corbett, let me ask you a question. Just hearing that the farmers have not been paid, what recourse is going against them not being paid? Do you know? Is anybody?
No, that what I would assume between their contract with the grower. I mean, and the,
May I
if she
address
could-
that?
there's,
This is what the processor is telling the farmers. We have to pay you. We have a bond, but only if you sue on the bond. That's what they're not telling the farmers, and the farmers don't know that. I know that because I'm a lawyer, but you have to sue on the bond in order to get paid.
Shouldn't we have in here protection for the farmer or for their contract if we're going to kind of govern a price? I mean,
now you're saying we should,
shouldn't
I
we
mean,
have something here if we're going
I
to?
mean, we do force them to have it, the surety bond, but I think that gets into a legal issue between
Okay.
the contract.
We do have surety bond.
Yes, we have a surety
Okay.
bond in here, but
I would say, however, like myself, who did not renew my processing contract this year, my bond ends this year too. So if I messed up somebody from last year, they can sue me, but I don't have any money because my bond lapsed at the same time my permit lapsed.
Thank you. How much is the cost of the surety bond?
The surety bond is $100,000. It cost me $1,500 last year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that work. Is Fred Swan here? Would he like to speak? Okay, come to the podium, Mike, please.
Thank you so much for hearing me today. We've already heard from other processors, farmers who are saying that, you know, this legislation is losing them money. And I appreciate that the Department of Agriculture wants for Georgia to be #1 in hemp. But honestly, we're also hearing that hemp growers and processors are having to go to other states to process their hemp. I mean, right now we need to lower these processing fees, get more players in the game, and then use those processing fees to, inspect this crop. If you get more processors, you get more competition in the market, you can lower prices for consumers. I just really don't understand why this legislation wants so badly to put government in front of small business. I really want us to get out of the way of small business, get government out of our way, and let the market determine winners and losers. Let the market determine who can be in business and who can't. Let's not push a small farmer out, and let's make certain that the large corporations are not the only ones who are going to win. Georgia's supposedly the number one place to do business, but farmers are having to do their business in other states. And this is going to go on and on and on until we fix legislation. I know we opened up this legislation only to fix a few federal things, but we can change the surety bond. We can change other protections for farmers. We can change these fees. We can do a lot of things now that we've opened up this legislation. And I really ask this committee to carefully review what this is doing to the business community and to the agriculture and farming community. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Swan. We have a question, Vice Chairman Holmes.
Yes, I'd like for the speaker, please, to identify himself and to tell us your occupation. What do you do? Why are you here? Did I miss that?
No. No, my name is Fred Swan, and I am just a private citizen who is very concerned with this hemp legislation. I have myself considered getting into hemp farming, but honestly, unless and until this legislation more liberalizes it for more small farmers and more business people to get involved, I have no interest in getting involved.
Are you a farmer yourself?
At this time, I am not a farmer myself.
Thank you. Next, Ashland Kane, would you like to come to the podium and tell us who you are? And thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. So I'm Ashland Kane. I'm here on behalf of the Sunflora and Your CBD Store family. Your CBD Store is the largest CBD retailer in the world, and we currently have about 600 stores here in the US, about 50 of which are in Georgia. So for me, admittedly, I'm probably one of the big guys, right? Our company is worth a lot of money. We do a lot of business. And frankly, even I find this pointlessly restrictive. And I think the better point is, why should we only be concerned about companies like mine? Because if we want to have a truly robust market, good competition, good quality CBD, we need a lot of different kinds of people to be involved. And obviously, we make a very high quality product. And so I appreciate the need to have proper vetting and inspections and all of those kinds of things. However, it just rings a little false to me because, like I said, we have businesses throughout the country. And I have worked in other states on legislation. We have other lawyers on our team who've worked on legislation. And we have not seen a climate like we have seen here in Georgia anywhere else. And there are states who are vastly outstripping us in terms of hemp processing, hemp growing, and many other things in the industry. So the idea that we need these artificially high prices in order to get this done, in order to be number one, we need to drive business to other states. It's very flawed thinking. And I think to Representative Wilson's point, honestly, you guys are kind of trusting the word of the experts that all of these are needed. And I'm here to tell you that if Georgia or if other states don't need it and they can do well, case in point, Florida, where our company is actually located, then I don't think we need them here in Georgia as well. I do think there should be appropriate barriers to entry. Obviously, we don't want people making snake oil CBD, right? But at the same time, if we're keeping small people out of the market, that's not doing anyone any favors either. So in Florida, for example, they actually have a director of cannabis. So they're taking this very seriously. They are trying to be number one in hemp. And they don't have fees like this. Their fees are much, much lower, which I'd be happy to provide to the committee at a different time. And so really, I also have to ask myself, when the department is so famous throughout the animal welfare community for not even inspecting pet rescues, for renewing licenses for pet rescues without even doing proper inspections, I kind of wonder, but you're very intent on hemp inspections. That again rings a little false to me. So basically all I'm trying to say is that we should keep fees at a reasonable place to where we can have a decent barrier of entry, but also, yes, we're putting people out of business left and right. And the big guys are not the only ones that matter. And if we really want to be the number one state to do business, the number one state for agriculture, the number one state for hemp, we got to change this.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your testimony. And Aviva with the Georgia Hemp Economic if you could keep your comments short as well. We need to somewhat speak to the bill that we have before us
Yes.
and points. Thank you.
Just to answer the question, it's $600 in Florida. But hey, y'all, thank you so much for having me. You might know me. My name is Aviva, founder of the Georgia Hemp Economic Revival Organization and producer of Hempdemic 2020, a documentary that teaches about the controversy of hemp illegality, including HB 847 and the not so angelic behaviors of the many legislators and players complicit to it. Corbett, I don't know if you listened to my testimony last spring in the Senate Ag meeting, but I was very clear. Based on my wisdom and experience with this revived young industry, the program created last year with the high fees and other demands on farmers, like not being able to sell their raw hemp to the public like peach and pecan farmers can, means there's no industry here. So here are my first two requests in adding amendments to this bill to amend the Georgia Hemp Farming Act to revive this industry here in Georgia. Amend, please, section 223.4, where it says it shall be unlawful for, please remove 7, offer for sale at retail the unprocessed flower or leaves of the hemp plant. The farmer should be able to sell what he grows, or she. Also, please amend 223.3 in the Georgia Hemp Farming Act. The definitions, change line 10, please, to include placing raw materials in a container as a form of processing. Right now, it says this does not include it. Just take out the word not. The farmer processor should be allowed to package the raw hemp, like our spinach, kale, and string bean crops. You see, with these constrictions, we have no Georgia hemp industry. Because what's the point? You have literally thrown out the baby with the bathwater. I've been coming down here for years teaching all of you about hemp food, hemp herd, hemp fiber, hemp building materials, hemp fuel, and this is the program you come up with, all about the flower and treating it like a controlled substance. Do you realize how much this limits everything else about the plant? For example, our hemp farmers are being punished for a crop that grew hot only because of a ridiculous THC limit of 0.3% that was never imposed on our American farmers growing it almost 100 years ago for fuel and fiber for the war. Here's a solution. I've been contacted by the PSC for contacts to process and provide hemp biomass in the form of feedstock pellets so we don't have to keep destroying our Georgia forests. But with a processor fee, paying $100,000 in less than 2 years, this does not keep our power on in the cheapest way possible. And yet this year,
We're gonna have to move on. I appreciate it. I don't want to cut you off, but we got a lot of other people.
okay, can I say one more thing
I
about the
think some of
misdemeanor?
I think some of the points you're talking about are federal that we cannot do anything about. So let me ask you a question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
You mentioned the Florida fees. How
Yeah.
does Florida pay for their
Okay, so
their program? Do you know,
Yeah.
do they get appropriation from legislature?
no, they did not. Everyone on the chain pays the 600 permit fee. The retailers, the wholesalers, the distributors, the manufacturers. There's thousands of people on that list. They don't limit it to the processor, and it's because of the handling of the flour.
Okay. Well, we've got a little different system here that we're working with. So, but I appreciate your comments and thank you. We're going to move
Okay.
on down the list. We got other
And
people
one
who
more
want to
request to
comment.
remove the misdemeanor. Can I just say something about that real quick?
Excuse me?
Remove that if they have a misdemeanor, they can't grow. You just added that. And I don't think that's fair. They can
We'll
either
let the
vote, but not
chairman,
grow a plant.
Corbett, speak to that when we get finished here.
Okay,
So,
thank you so much. And
thank you.
please watch Hempdemic.
Next on our list is Velma Pearson. Thank you for being here this morning. Tell us who you are.
Good morning. First, let me thank the committee for doing a great job, for just being a service. My name is Velma Pearson. I'm the owner of Reed Farm. I'm the part owner of Reed Family Farm Trust in Sparta, Georgia, in Hancock County. My sibling and I, this is our first year. We come from a 3-generation of farmers. My grandfather was the cotton sharecropper in Hancock, Teleferro County, Warren County. We as a family decided to grow hemp last year, and we was planning on growing it this year. But because of the fees, we're not gonna be able to do the processing fee this year, but we are gonna grow. We grew late. Our crops were small because we did not have the necessary fund for the other part of watering and doing other things to put us in place. So we turn our crop at the end of the year into seeds. So this year we'll be able to grow and we're looking to have a crop, but what we need is somebody that's going to purchase our product and not take our money. We buy gas, fuels, make the repairment to our equipment, fertilize. When we get through doing all that, that's enough on a family. My grandfather used to do that all the time. And as a child coming up, walking behind him in a field, trying to figure out how to chop cotton, how to pick cotton, I learned it. Now I'm ready to do it with the hemp and make Georgia #1 hemp crops. And I'm looking forward to working with you all as a committee. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate you taking the time to come. Next is Erica Wartford. Is here to speak. Thank you to the mic and tell us a little bit of who you are, and please keep your comments to the point.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Erica Watford. My company is Honey Please. I'm located in Lexington, Georgia. This is new for me, my second year, and looking at the fees with processing has gone up tremendously from 10 to 25 to 50. That made it a little bit kind of high an extent for me to even kind of get started and go to the next step. I was hoping, well, since we are unable to find processors, if they can remove the requirements to contract with other processors, or we can process our own pretty much in a sense, instead of us having to go out and find other processors. Maybe there's a way that we can process ourselves in order for us to get our license. If we don't have a processor, we can't get our license to grow, pretty much, as picking back on other people that pretty much said that as well. Also, we're hoping, well, some type of mandate that the Department of Agriculture contract with more than one company to collect field sample fees for us, and allow the state testing fees that come out of the fees that we're paying, maybe, well, hopefully, that will go towards growers and processing fees, license fees, if that makes sense. So I'm not a great speaker in front of people, so that's pretty much my thoughts on it. Hopefully we can come up with a reduced rate for processors. It would make it a lot easier for a lot of farmers out here, new and existing farmers as well. So that's it.
Thank you. I'm going to skip down the list. I see someone here from Macon, Sarah Johnson, owns a laboratory testing lab. I'd like for her to come and this committee to meet her and hear from her a little bit this morning. If we have time, we're sorry to the committee that we're running so long, but Sarah, mic's yours. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you so much. I actually have a handout I would like to pass out as well, if that's okay. Thank you. And while that's getting passed out, my name is Sarah Johnson. I'm the owner, founder, and scientific director of SJ Labs and Analytics. We are the first cannabis-specific testing lab in the state of Georgia. This year, I had the pleasure of working with several of these farmers and processors who are seated behind me. I tested for their pre-compliance. I also tested for the Georgia Department of Agriculture for the compliance test, and I've done their post-harvest test. Whew, sorry, y'all, I'm a little nervous. Right off, I want to address something that the commissioner said as far as a state testing lab and sampling fees. The sampling fee a farmer pays is $1,200. The testing is not the expensive part. The state sampling is. Testing is $65. So roughly $1 million for them to set up a testing lab and salary a person is not paid for by a test, just to put that out there. One of the issues that I wanted to address today, we've talked a lot about regulation, but I want to talk about testing mandates. What you'll see in front of you is the California Cannabis Board's standard testing mandates. These tests were not born out of a vacuum. They were born out of conditions exactly like what we're facing today. Because when California passed their Medicinal Cannabis Act in the late 90s, the quality product getting to the consumer was chaos. It was literally a Wild West. We don't have to reinvent the wheel to have a successful program. I mentioned cannabis because hemp and cannabis are the exact same plant. The only difference is THC. And I want to be clear to the committee, THC is not the risk of this plant. The microbes, the mycotoxins, the pesticides, the residual solvents, those are the things that can hurt the consumer. On the flip side of that, one of the reasons our farmers aren't getting paid is because we have fraudulent COAs being sold in the state as 25% CBD and non-detectable THC. I've tested those products, it is a fraud. So we have to mandate lot IDs to be sold in the state. Those lot IDs need to be traceable from seed to sale, and they need to include a full compliance safety panel. And that's really all I have, sorry.
Well, thank you. I see several members have some questions. Representative Mitchell online. Can you, would you like to ask a question?
Yes. I was wondering, because this bill does specifically cover pricing costs for next year, how many growers do we have currently who have licenses? And is there a reason we could not set up a fee structure based on acreage planted?
Representative Chairman Corbett.
I can answer it. We do have a fee structure based on acres. It's $50 per acre with a cap of 5,000. So they can grow up to 100 acres. It's 5,000. Anything over 100 is still just the 5,000. There's a cap of 5 for the grower. So it is $50 an acre for the grower.
Thank you. Question from Mike 6.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Representative Bentley.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure you and the other members know that I was listening online while I was trying to attend another meeting also. But to the young lady that just spoke, thank you for your presentation, but are you in support of this bill or opposition?
I am in support of the hemp industry as a whole, and I understand why this bill is necessary, but I think this is a really good opportunity to take a look at the things that didn't work this season and to reevaluate them and look at how we can do it better. Testing mandates helps everybody. That's what the standard is for every successful cannabis program in this country. And that's where I want to start to make a difference, is that we're getting safe product to the consumer, we're protecting the farmer for their competition on the market, and we're protecting them against predatory processors who are not paying their farmers. So overall, yes, this bill is necessary, but we need to make changes for it to be realistically applied to the hemp industry.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Also, Chairman Watson, you 11.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is more of a general comment / question. I don't know who needs to answer it the best, but obviously being a farmer, I sympathize with some of the comments that I've heard, but I've also heard a lot of problems. And I'm trying to get wrapped around this. I don't know if the problem is the fees or if the problem is processors not paying farmers, or, you know, even as a produce farmer, if I don't have a market, I still lose money. And I mean, last week I lost money packing cabbage because I didn't have a market for it. So even if we don't have a regulatory environment in place, there's still the risk of losing money. You're growing a crop, and that's part of what we do. So I'm just trying to, you know, understand. And I guess I see that 300 pounds. How many acres does it take to yield 300 pounds of biomass?
On average, that would take 3 acres to yield 300 pounds, and that's if you have a great crop. It could take as much as 10 acres to get 300 pounds. I grew 14 acres last year, and I doubled up because we were so late in the season to be able to grow. And I was only able to produce 9,000 pounds because it was a 1/4 pound per plant, and you're growing approximately 1,200 plants per acre. But to answer your first question, as the law is currently written, our only the only channel that farmers can sell their crops to right now are processors, and there's not enough of them, and they're not buying. If you sell tomatoes, you can go to the market and sell that at farmers markets. You can sell it to grocery stores if you want to. Our only option right now is processors, and that's not an option. Therefore, we have no option.
Well, to respond to that, I guess I can, but there's not always going to be somebody that can buy it, and I'm still going to lose money. and that's just the way it is.
I want to speak to that. So I'm in a unique position because I end up in the middle of everything. All the farmers come to me and the processors come to me. So I deal with both sides of the coin. And there was a complete collapse in the Georgia distribution this year. That's completely true. There was a co-op that was set up that took on several farmers. That co-op failed before the harvest even happened. As Victoria mentioned, there are several processors who aren't paying their farmers. Some of them got state funds to set up their processing lab. That's problematic. Again, they're getting cut out by competition in other states. Other states claim they have better product. They do not. And we can fix that by making sure that things are sold by their lot. States either rise to our standard or they don't compete.
Let me talk to the posture here. It's 9 o'clock, and I know a lot of us got other commitments, and I'll try to take some more questions here from the committee. But I think we to the point we're gonna have to get it back to Chairman Corbett, and let's move this bill here. We're getting late in the session, and I think we need to sort of speak to the bill that we've got in front of us. And I know Chairman Corbett's worked on this hard. Some things that we can change, some things we can't change. And so, Chairman Corbett, I'm going to take it back to you and kind of wrap this up, and let's see if we can't move this bill.
Thank you, Chairman Dickey. Thank you for everybody for coming. It's very, everybody's passionate about what they're doing. I wish we could do this for nothing. I wish everybody could make money. I wish Sam could make money every time he grows a head of cabbage, but I mean, that's just not the way supply and demand works. And I don't know how we put that in the bill where we can, guarantee everybody's going to make money every time they do this. I wish I could. Speaking to the 0.3 that we talked about earlier, that's a federal requirement. Anything over 0.3 is marijuana. We've got no leeway on that. That's in the federal rules and regs. That has to be changed to the federal level. The affidavit part, I think we speak to that in this bill. Am I correct, Commissioner? We've removed that in this bill. Now, there's some question, but legal counsel tells me that has been taken care of in this bill. So anyway, that's where we're at. And like the chairman said, this late date in the session, we can move the bill, or if not, if we don't move the bill, I guess we operate under the same terms as last year. We're not in compliance with federal laws if we do not. So I would ask for the committee's favorable consideration in moving the bill, and we'll continue to have the conversation going forward.
I'd be open for a motion to do that. Got a motion to do pass. Do I have a second? I got a second. All in favor? Excuse me. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask the committee for any discussion. Mike 7, who is that? Representative Camp?
That's me. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Chairman Corbett. This is a very comprehensive bill on a lot of topics regarding getting us in compliance with federal laws. And this may be a Commissioner Black question, but I know being a small family farm myself, I know there was an escalation in fees, and that's a barrier for a lot of people. We had people who last year and perhaps the year before really were trailblazers and took a risk and purchased equipment. Is there any way we could consider grandfathering them in or letting them have a continuance of fees, since they did have a contract as indicated by one of our testimonies for a period of time to see if they could be successful with it?
Commissioner, would you answer that question?
Representative Kane, I don't know when arbitrarily grandfather folks in. You can,
No.
and we even had some discussions. We've tried to be helpful with a group not too far from here that would trying to, and they may be represented here this morning. If they do, well, maybe we can visit after the meeting, but to try to look into, could we pay some now and some later? I unfortunately, the law doesn't allow me to do that. I mean, if you give us the opportunity to do that, we're not, I don't think they'll let you pay. There's not any fee in government that I'm aware of when it says your fee, you owe a fee and there's a deadline, then that's what we have to do.
Well,
But
no, I
I'm
meant maybe
certainly
a
open to those,
continuance.
certainly open to those kind of things if that's
Okay.
the way you'd like to go.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Donahue.
Yes, sir,
Now-
Mr. Chairman, and thank you. I'll try to make this fast. I see where it's $50 per acre to 5,000 we talked about earlier as a max. Have no problem with that. Yes, sir. And I think government shouldn't fund our adventures, no matter what they are. So we need to have to be able to pay for this. Now with this, so I think the prices, in my opinion, are a little too high. When we looked at $10,000 when we're coming in, I would make a suggestion that we come back basically to 10 or 15,000 and try to keep this program off the ground, but not penalize the small people, because everybody has to start somewhere. And if you already have an investment, my biggest concern besides the price is that we have people ripping off. And I deal with this all the time where the attorney says, sue me, or the company says, sue me, and the small person doesn't have the money to sue for a $5,000 or $10,000 claim, then I get involved. And I win 9 out of 10 times. And I'm not an attorney because I'm going to do what's right. And when I say that, I just think we should look at the figure here. I understand the bill. Thank you for all the work you put into it. I want you to know that. But I think we have a problem here with really way too high price. And I believe in sunsets. If we go up to a price, we're going to have to come down. That's just my opinion. I would say if we could look at something like that, like Representative Camp said, to either look at, we have the control here, as the commissioner said, that's what we're here for, to go ahead and say that we're going to either grandfather the ones that started in, or we're going to go ahead and say we're going to go from 10,000 last year to 15,000 this year. Something there to where we can still maintain growth in the industry. And I would just make a suggestion there, however, we would need to word that. But thank you.
Thank you. Got a question, Mike 4, which is Representative Thomas.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm excited about hemp. I'm excited about this opportunity for farmers and growers, and excited about Georgia. I mean, this is an economic development engine in itself. I understand that we're trying to ensure that the program pays for itself, but I just can't get past the $50,000. I've worked with startup companies for over 11 years and starting businesses, and this just seems to be a stifling mechanism for me for $50,000. I would love to see a tier done for startups and coming in. Ms. Collier showed us, I think it was Exhibit B, how only one farmer was able to come back from the last year. I would expect this list to be even longer, and it's not. It's shorter. And she actually came back under a different entity, so she skirted the system. I would ask if there was a way to lower the fee. How many, or what is the X amount of farmers would we need to make up what the fees are to sustain the program? So I'm not sure if Commissioner Black is still here, or Ms. Collier, if you know, how many additional farmers would we need to bring on at the $10,000 fee to still sustain the program?
Commissioner Black.
Representative Thompson, first of all, the fees we're collecting now are not going to pay for what the process, what the program's all about. So if you want to match that up, you could do the math on that real quick. If it's going to be $600,000, then you just work up a formula to whatever that fee would be. I can't predict how many farmers there are going to be. Right. So I can't predict how many processors are going to be. That's where we're in a guessing game. Mr. Chairman, but that's certainly a logical presentation and opinion that you have, and we'd be happy to, talk about it. If you decide to move the bill forward, we'll certainly be at the table to help talk about that. But Mr. Chairman, I meant to mention this a moment ago, if you would allow me real quickly.
Sure.
For everybody that is here, and I'd love to talk to you. Anybody hadn't been paid? Has anybody called on the bond? There's a $100,000 bond, and those require inaction with us, and we're happy. And I'd love to talk to everybody today. If you hadn't been paid, we have to call on that bond. That's what you do with every other commodity. That's what you do with corn. That's what you do with vegetables, and that's what you do with pecans. And so most time people sit around and say, well, I think they're going to pay me. I think they're going to pay me. I think they're going to pay me. And then all of a sudden they don't pay me. And then the bond runs loose, council. And then then you don't have a bond. And I hear what you're saying about a small processor and the cost of the bond, but I also, to Representative Chairman Watson's point, if you're going to be in business, you got to be in business. And if you're going to be in the grain business, you're going to have a bond. If you're going to be in any of those other regulated industries that we have, the reason we do that is to protect producers, protect little producers, big producers, medium-sized producers. Every producer deserves right of that protection, and that's why we have a bond division and council that defends that vigorously. But if we don't know somebody's not paid, we can't call on the bond. So we'd be happy to do that. And the chairman knows this. We had some discussion very early on. I believe it was the first version of this bill. I would support it today if you chose to go back and do some things as the bill moves along. But $100,000 bond on a brand new industry on something that this is volatile, that bond's too low to start with. We recommended early on that it be $300,000. Because you didn't know where you were getting to. But that one, somewhere that fell out, and we've had so many versions of this bill that it gets to the late hour and all of a sudden you're passing something you can't deal with. But we all know that if Chairman Watson had a vegetable issue, $300,000 won't even touch it. And I don't know how much people owe y'all. We'll sit here and listen along at the end because I want to know how much they owe you. But if they owe you, they ought to pay you. And that's why we have a bond. And so, Mr. Chairman, we're happy to, if that gets part of this discussion as we move forward, we'll provide our team's expertise to get that language right. But thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I respond to Representative Thomas just for briefly?
Just a moment. I'll recognize you. That I want to recognize Chairman Corbett.
Mr. Chairman, I would be amenable. Let's grandfather them in, or let's just leave it at the 25. If we go back instead of going to 50, put it at 25. Now I don't know if some's already paid, what we'll have to do there, Mr. Chairman. I would be amenable to an amendment.
So we're looking at line what for?
Be line 193. And also, if we need to raise that surety bond to 300,000, so let's do that as well. Amend line 193, just back to 25,000 instead of the 50. And then back to the surety bond, and I'm not sure what line we are here, but
However, raising bond raises the cost of the bond.
Right.
As well. So it's kind of a.
Well, it's I mean, it's you given on the 50,000, but their bond's going to be more expensive as well. But yeah. I mean, that's what here we need to do it.
Yeah. So we're open to amendment, and we can get legal counsel here. Paul Higby can do that if it's the wishes of the committee.
Yes, 150.
So your amendment would change the 100 to 300?
Yes.
Okay. And also lower the
line 193.
193 from 50,000 to 25,000. Okay, that, I need a motion for those two amendments. Got a motion, got a second. Discussion on that, on the amendment. Representative Wilson.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I don't understand what the amendment is on lines 193 to 194. I understand what the intent is. But
Well,
what is
the legal counsel probably needs to word that better than what I've said. We need to just leave it at 25. I don't know if we just remove all of that in this 25. If he'll tell us what the wording needs to be.
Please.
And not being a lawyer, that would be.
Huh? I think we're going, I think your intent is for 2021 to have it at 25,000
Yeah.
and subsequent years. Yeah. I think where it reads now, it's 50 for 2021.
And then decreases to 25.
And so we go to 25 for this year and subsequent years. Paul, we got that? Okay. That is the two amendments. Representative Wilson, are you clear on that?
So I think, would that not be accomplished by just striking on line 192 after $25,000?
Provided from there out would do
Just,
it. That's
just
right.
end it there. To line 194, so long as no administrative action, leave that part, but everything in between, just strike it.
That would do that. That would accomplish that.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second for the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just as we've heard in testimony this morning, if there are processors that have already paid the 50, will 25 be reimbursed for those individuals, just to make sure we're all in the same playing field?
That would be a question for the commissioner. I assume it was. If we put it in code, I think it would, they would be refunded.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
A good question. Thank you. Okay, call for a vote for the amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Online, Representative Mitchell.
Aye.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we're good. The amendment passes. Representative Perkle.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Forgot about you there. So we're back to the motion for the bill. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Representative Mitchell and Perkle?
Yes.
Well, thank you very much. Motion passes, bill passes. Thank you, Chairman Corbett.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Black, for working on this. I know it's a daunting task, herding cats with, it seems like at times, but moving target. But thank you. We've got one other small bit. Representative Camp has got a bill. It's going to be a hearing only. I just want to get it on your radar. We'll have to consider this bill at another meeting here pretty soon. So, Representative Camp, could you update us on your bill?
I'm 7. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members of the committee. This bill is a department bill, and it's really something that's near and dear to my heart because all of us have seen very sad stories on television where animals are rescued by local organizations. Oftentimes it's large numbers of animals, and this bill addresses kind of what happens when a small community rescues more than 29 cats or dogs or more than 9 equines. And because oftentimes what happens is small communities do not have the funds to pay for the care and the vet bills and the rehoming of those animals. And so it turns around, they come to the Department of Agriculture asking for assistance in this matter. At this time, there's no line item, there's not part of their budgetary process to help reimburse local governments for these animals that were so sadly treated beforehand. So what this bill does is it provides a trust fund from the fees that are paid by pet stores and stables. It's not any addition to fees already being paid. It's just actually targeting these fees towards this trust fund. And in the numbers here, we've got 200, it never shall exceed $200,000. And in any given year, no more than $50,000 shall be spent. There will be an accounting annually of this February 1st by the Department of Agriculture to let us know what's happened. But just given that many small communities, such as the one that I live in, we don't even have a humane society. So when, a large number of animals from a breeder are taken in because of mistreatment, unfortunately, very small budget counties are really in a detriment. So this is a much needed for our smaller populations. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Camp. Is there any questions? As I said, this is a hearing only. Any questions from the committee? Hearing none, thank you very much. We will be looking forward to having a vote on this bill at our next meeting, I hope. So.
Thank you.
With that, thank y'all. I know some of you in the audience did not get a chance to speak, but I think we heard the temperature of that. So thank you for being here. Those of you who did come a long way, thank you for coming. All the great resources to this committee. Thank you, Commissioner Black, and what your department. Thank you, Representative Chairman Corbett, and the rest of the committee. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? So adjourn. Thank y'all very much.